Hey y'all, good evening. Thanks for joining me. I'm going to be focused on the prophecies of a civil war in America. I've been following this after my last video with the earthquake issue. There's a lot of kind of talk about the divisions and things that are happening right now, so I felt it was a good time to bring this up. I'm going to be sharing a professor's scenario, his theory on how this civil war could come into effect. And let's just remember that, keep an open mind. These are just theories and scenarios, okay? We're going to listen to that. Now, Kim, on Kim Iversen's show, she was asking him, she was saying something, there was a thing about Trump trying to stay in office, and she explained, well, that didn't happen when he was in office in 2019, 2020, they changed power. So, that was with the pandemic going on. So she is asking about this issue, okay? And he is going to give a scenario regarding the factions in our country, and I'd like you to listen to that to just see this as a possibility or a theory. And then I want to show two prophecies, specific pieces on what is going to happen according to their predictions on what will happen with the people, the uprisings, the Civil War. We'll see how these things, what the professor says and what the prophecies say, because I like to compare. That's just how I look at things. Doesn't mean any of this, what he said is going to happen, doesn't mean anything. The point is opening our minds to seeing different ways of scenarios of how this civil war would come about. Even in my last video, I saw some comments that, oh, well, this stuff that's happening in Minnesota, that could trigger something. This is what I'm doing. I'm going down that avenue, and I'm going to share these things. So please listen carefully, because I'm really hoping for some really great discussion points when I'm done with this video, and below the video, hopefully these posts will be there. So let's start with this portion of Kim Iversen's video on this with Professor Zhuang Quicken. I can't pronounce it really well, but I think it's Chinese. Okay, so let's see what she has to say, and then what he says.
You say some sort of an emergency. Well, they tried one of the biggest emergencies of our lifetime, probably the biggest emergency of our lifetime, which is COVID at this point. So what would they try next? And I think you might be right. It would have to be, I think, a civil war. I don't even think war with Iran would be enough, because we've been at war many times and we still switch over presidents. So it would have to be a civil war, right?
It would have to be a civil war, exactly. And all the conditions are in place now for a civil war. You have a polarized information landscape where people just live in their own bubbles. So you look at the shooting in Minnesota, and both the left and the right are absolutely convinced they're right. The left is convinced that this is an innocent woman who was killed for no reason. The right is actually convinced that she is a provocateur. She went in to resist authority. She did this. She tried to run over the officer, and the officer did it in defense. There's actually no reconciliation between these two sides. They all live in their own social media bubbles.
But is that going to lead? Is that enough? Historically, I mean, what has reeled people to the point of picking up a gun and shooting at their own family members? Because that's what happens in a civil war. Things have to get really bad.
Look, the reality is that both the Democrats and Republicans have certain paramilitary factions that will incentivize and propel a civil war. Okay, so the Republicans have these white nationalist groups, the Proud Boys. The Democrats have, Antifa. So these are street gangs that they can deploy in order to achieve certain political purposes. The reality is that the oligarchy benefits from a civil war because you have this massive discontent, and historically, either the people engage in a civil war or they engage in a revolution. So do you prefer revolution or do you prefer civil war? Also,
He makes an excellent point here. Yes, what the oligarchy wants is division, which I've known this for quite a while, and I'm sure people who see this understand this. So yes, of course they're going to want a civil war, distraction, causing the neighbor against neighbor, instead of a revolution against these globalists in power. Okay, makes a lot of sense to me, at least this portion. But let's go on and see what he says.
what's happening in Washington is this massive conflict among certain deep state factions. And I don't think people really appreciate the level of conflict right now in Washington, D.C. And traditionally, historically, the way that these conflicts among the elite are settled is through civil war on the streets. The people are sacrificed in order to achieve certain political agendas. And so I think that what's going to happen is that over the next few weeks, Trump is going to continue to antagonize his opponents. ICE is going to provoke the people. You'll have random shootings of ICE agents. And then you have martial law, National Guard will come in. And these things can escalate really quickly. And then you'll have these secret agents, deep state agents, working among insurrection groups, organizing them, encouraging violence, teaching them how to sabotage. So if you just look at movies like Civil War and one battle after another, it's really predictive programming, right? They're really trying to get people in the mindset of civil war, because ultimately at the end of the day, civil war is what benefits the oligarchy. One, because it prevents people from recognizing the true enemies, the oligarchy, but also remember that America is $38 trillion in debt. And so if your house is worth $1 million and you owe $10 million to the bank, what you do is you burn the house down and you collect the insurance money. And that's a game plan of the oligarchy.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Okay, so it sounds, this is pretty scary. It sounds, but it makes sense. We see it all the time on the national nation against nation level, that elites will sit in their like Oval Office, or they'll sit, in their war rooms, or and they'll sit there and they'll throw bodies at a war. They'll throw soldiers at a war. And they don't even think twice about all of the young men and women who are going to be killed, in civilians, children who are going to be killed in a war. And so you're saying that, like a soldier for the generals and the elites, the average citizen is actually a soldier for the oligarchs. They view us as the same sort of, they just view us as soldiers.
Well, yeah, of course. We are cannon fodder. I mean, you don't see any of the elites going to war, right?
That we're going to fight their battles for them.
That is right. That is unfortunately right.
So what are the factions that you can sense that are fighting behind the sings?
Well, the major faction is the one that is establishment, right? The establishment faction, which has been in power for the longest time, especially under Clinton and Obama, they're nationalists, they're elite, they are basically these coastal liberal elites, or what we can say as a deep state. And now you have the rise of MAGA First. And MAGA First is supported by these tech oligarchs like Peter Thiel and Elon Musk. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to overthrow the deep state to establish their own power. And I would say these are the two major factions. And then the left and right faction are the sort of like the veneer of this deeper conflict.
Yeah, so it's a deep state, an old guard deep state being ousted by the new guard deep state that wants to take over.
Exactly.
But there's still going to be a deep state. Yeah.
Exactly.
And the new deep state is more like AI and surveillance, and they're bigger on, it seems, that sort of, Right,
exactly. So old guard is transnational capital, Wall Street, and then new deep state is Palantir, Silicon Valley, these people.
Yeah.
Yes, and I can actually see that happening only because we know that the AI and the digital IDs, the digital computerized things will be used by the Antichrist, okay? So let's just, yeah. So he's saying these two factions, okay? Let me see.
Right. Okay. Oh, wow. Well, do we really?
Okay, so that's the part I wanted to get into right here, was his two factions that he's seeing to kick up this civil war between the right and the left. And behind the people who have strong feelings on the left or the right are these oligarchs vying in position to take over power from each other. And we always knew, the deep state's there, we always knew, and there's certain factions within the deep state. If you listen to Whitney Webb, she has said that a lot. There's different factions, and they are going against each other. So whether this happens or not, obviously, this is just a scenario, as I said. Now I'm going to play the two videos that I wanted to tell you about. I'm going to read it. One of them, the first one's from Metropolitan Neophytos from probably sometime 2025, early or late 2024. I'm trying to remember when I did this video. But in any case, let's go to it, because his thing is on a certain elder talks about the civil war. Okay, so he says the Metropolitan is saying, he has the book right there. He says, these are the words of Elder Vasilios of Kasokalavitis, I guess. And then he's going to say here, he died in 2015, okay? So he said these things before 2000, he's saying. Evil will come from the west, and quickly. People of other religions will dominate. They will make monsters and marks. There will be a civil war. This is said for Greece, but there will also be a civil war in America, he says. In political anarchy, that is, during elections. Because they won't want to hand over the power. I don't know which elections he's talking about, but that's what I'm hearing. It's mainly the big cities that will be affected. Okay, the big cities. Blood will be shed on both sides. Innocent blood will be shed. But it won't last long. Days it will be, on the fingers of one hand. That's important. Okay, so even if we have this kind of uprising or civil war, it's going to be short-lived. Thank God, right? Okay. Bad that innocents are killed, though, obviously. All the states will be anti-Greek and will want to conquer Greece. Well, that's the Greek side. But they will only succeed in conquering themselves. So if you're in Greece or whatever, this would help you out to know this. But listen to what you are saying. Tell me a prophecy that has been fulfilled, says the person asking, or he's saying. So he says here what the saint is saying here. But know that without a gunshot being fired, we will be enslaved. Okay? This is another part of this that's important. We will sleep free and wake up enslaved by what our own politicians will sign and accept. I can totally see this, but let's go on. He's still reading from the Vasilios. Memoranda, the elder Vasilios. Woe to the young people, then they will sow and not reap. Great misery will fall. Many young people will leave. Migration due to unemployment. And the last one, in a while we will have a new order. So he's saying that it sounds like this happens with the collapse of the economy. There's going to be unemployment. That overnight thing about the banks closing, it sounds like that kind of is going along with this, is what this Elder Vasilios is saying, that the Metropolitan is reading from the book. So this is important. Okay, so from what we got from this, a civil war with it, like 5 days of civil war, because it's on one hand. Okay, let's just say within these, on one hand, 5 days, some innocent people will be killed. Okay, there's going to be a lot of unemployment. Of these things are going to start happening after that. That banks will close and everything is what it sounded like, is what I'm getting out of it. Now, if you understand it differently, please share your thoughts. Now I'm going to go and finish up with the unknown elder once again, but this part is extremely important. He said on January 29, 2021, as I've said, but I'm going to read this again because it's important. In America, great and terrible events will unfold, possibly igniting widespread unrest among the people, yes, even a civil war. If such a conflict erupts, it will not remain within the traditional political framework, but will extend across racial, religious, and ideological divisions. Now, this I can see from what the professor said about the Proud Boys against the Antifa. Yeah, there's ideologies there. There's racial issues. There's, I'm not sure if there's religious, but definitely there's these divisions affecting groups such as whites and blacks, Christians and Muslims, and other societal factions. The consequences will be severe, with immense losses stemming from the fury that will surge through the population. This anger, driven by political, religious, and racial tensions, will culminate in devastation. And of course, they're talking about the earthquake here. Nature itself will respond with destruction emerging from San Andreas Fault. Okay, now let's get to this next part. June 24, 2021. So he says to prevent... Now, we already heard this part that I put out the other day. So a civil war, okay, so to prevent a conflict in the Black Sea Crimea region between Russia and NATO forces, a civil war may erupt in America in an inevitable uprising, whether now or later. Many deeply troubling revelations will surface. Developments will unfold rapidly, with the military beginning to round up members of Congress and the government. This is... every time I read this part, it just is really chilling and sobering and kind of, scary. But it also says that it sounds like there will be a military coup against our own government, whoever is still in, if Trump's still in or if somebody else is in. I don't know. I mean, if the time frame is 2026, 2027, it sounds like it's still the Trump administration. If it happens around the 2028 election period, I don't know. But all of that is really important. I got a lot out of that. The Civil War within, just a handful of days. The uprisings, the divisions between all the different factions. And I can definitely see the oligarchies playing this out, because that's constantly what they do, is try to cause division between the average citizens, the masses. We're not each other's enemies. These people above us are the ones causing all this, okay? Which is, anything of chaos and division is obviously of the evil one. And people are usually get swept up in this. And that's why I'm sharing this with you, because I think it's important that this scenario is something to look at. That doesn't mean it's going to happen. We all know things change or can happen whatever way I'm speaking them. This is just the professor's ideas. It doesn't mean that's what's going to happen. These are two predictions from two different elders. And so I'm not sure what will happen, but I wanted to put that out there for you all so that you can mull this over and think about this and share your thoughts on what you think could stoke up such a civil war that it would cause, people, regular Americans, to go against each other so much more, even more than what it is now with division, with politics and everything like that. I think it's important that there's all these different factors to it. So please share your comments below this video. Thanks so much for watching, for following my channel. Please subscribe if you have not subscribed. I like to really open the minds and my own mind, and just think about different things. I guess I kind of like philosophical conversations, I guess, in a way, but I just like that kind of discussion. And along with the prophecies, and also I will be doing a live stream on Wednesday about spiritual dryness, about the convert's cross, and sustaining faith, and then of course navigating through the spiritual desert. I hope you all join me for that as well. Thanks so much for all of your helpful, insightful comments on all my videos, for your support. I mean, if you do want to support me in more than just subscribing, you can always press that super thanks button below my video. If you don't see it, it's in that area of the vertical dots. You can click on that and it should be in there. Or you can buy me a cup of coffee. Whatever you want to do, you don't have to do it. I'm just saying, if you want to support all my work and research that I keep, I try to work on, and it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. So thanks again. Have a good evening.